Welcome back to the Boy to Man podcast, where we help you go from boy to man in mind, body, heart, and soul through the stories and experiences of the men who have done it. And today we have a unique episode that is going to be the first of a reoccurring theme. For the time being, we'll just call it the Build in Public series, where myself and Tycho sit down and talk kind of intimately on the behind the scenes of the business, what we're building here, what's going on, how our personal relationships going, how our business relationships going, and how we're seeing the world as it relates to the business model, as it pertains to our business and the industry that we're in. And this is the first time we've sat down, recorded, which we were just chatting about. And so we're going to be covering a number of different things, but really this is going to be like the jumping off point from everything just starting with me and Tycho as business partners, to the business model pivoting, to where we're at in the business, what our personal relationship's at, and then where the business is at. And then we just have like some philosophy and perspective questions. We actually had our community ask us a couple questions, so we're probably going to drop a couple of those Q&A questions at some point as well. But yeah, do you get an intimate behind the scenes look at where we're at building this company? And I'm excited to chat about that. I'm excited to chat it with Tycho, recorded in this format, because we were just kind of giddy when we first started. Or it was like, whoa, like this is really intimate. And we're also realizing that this is a great opportunity for us to build a relationship deeper, and for us to just like speak from a different perspective about the business, given that it is recorded, given that we know it will likely go somewhere. So, Tycho, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Cam. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. To allow us to tap into some flow here, I'd love to kick things off with a question for you, Cam, and ask on your origin story. Only share, what you feel called and what you feel is relevant. But a lot of the members in our current community don't realize the business used to be called Above Men, something dear and true to you. So I'd love to hear, how you got here and where that all started.
Yeah, like the origin story. Yeah, so the origin story really is stemming back to when I was 15 years old, and I would even say like before then, but 15 years old was kind of like the first pin in my like timeline that led me to where I am today. And that was when I kind of came to terms with I'm skinny, I'm shy, I lack a lot of confidence, and I didn't like the body I was in, and I wanted to finally do something about it. I think there was a number of years from like 11, 12, 13, 14 that I felt that, but didn't really act on it. And I was just kind of fed up with that. And I felt like I had enough agency to go and do something about it. So 15 years old, got in the gym, and that really kicked everything off. Because once I started down in the gym, I just felt this urge to go deeper on self-development, which then led me down to this like 8-year journey of figuring myself out beyond just my body. Like I went from 150 pounds skinny to 200 pounds shredded. That was kind of the first big transformation that I made in my life, and gave me a lot of like confidence in myself, confidence in my ability to just like act in a sovereign manner. I wasn't relying on anyone to like do that. And it was like, oh, I have the capabilities. And so that was the first, I would say, string that I started to pull, but it was coming from a huge void in my life. Then the other void that started to appear as I went into life as an adult, or even teens, and then into adulthood, was just constantly bouncing around from thing to thing to thing. And I never felt really like clear on what I wanted out of life, but I always had this like insatiable itch that just kept me moving from thing to thing. And that led me to, by the time I started Above Men, trying my hand at 24 different jobs and businesses.
I read that in the email copy.
There you go. By the time I was 24. And there was a reason for that, but it all led me to where I was today, which is great. And I'll kind of come back to the fork in the road here in a sec. And then the last piece was, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know really how to like put it into words, but I had this craving for what I now see as like strong male role models. And my dad was present in my life, but he wasn't really there as a strong male role model. He didn't really show up as someone that I could learn from, to embody like he just embodied actually everything that I believe in now, the opposite. And so I craved that, and I didn't really know it at the time, but that's what I was searching for. Like I really wished when I was younger I had a big brother. And crazy story, which we can get into, about the time that I was meditating and yada yada, and that was one of the core pieces, which is actually probably worth going into. But the male side of things, or the mentorship side of things, really started to show itself when I kept stumbling my way through all these careers and kind of life chapters, and never really felt like I had someone that I could call on and be like, hey, what did you do in this situation? I never really had any real mentors besides the beautiful thing about the internet, like social media and these parasocial relationships. So leaned on those a ton, but then I came to recognize wow, I never had this, and it's something that I really craved. And so I now at 24, I feel like I could start to give back to my younger self. And I was listening when I was in this period of my life where I was transitioning from working in an agency to what would have become Above Men. I went into this transition period because the reason I did was I was at the time working with two partners. There was three of us. We were working in this video production agency. It was going well. We were making good money, but they wanted to take the business one way, and if I wanted to be a part of it, still wanted to go another way. And so when they told me that, I recognized wow, this is going to be another thing that I'm going to have to transition out of and transition into something else again. And again, I'm 24 at the time. I started to get sick of this pattern because I started to see it in myself, bouncing from thing to thing. And after 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, I just found myself not being enthused about the vehicle, or finding reasons that it wasn't going to work for me, or not being in alignment with the person that I was serving, and find myself again at this crossroads. And so I'm like, okay, dude, you can't keep doing this, and you have to ask the bigger question, why is this a pattern now? What is actually going on? And I kind of faced the music at that point in the best way possible. And so I started to ask myself the bigger questions at this point was, what would be something that I'd be willing to do for the rest of my life? What is it that I love? And started to ask these bigger questions. And I took 3 or 4 months to really think about it. And in doing so, I came to the realization that I am most powerfully in position to help the younger version of myself, or the prior version of myself. When I realized that full circled me into why I was so, that's why I was craving strong male role models. Was I wanted someone to help my younger self, which was what I was kind of chasing. And as a result of that, when I came to that realization, oh my God, I could be that for the person that I didn't have. And this is where the meditation came in and looped back in, which was when in 2019, I was meditating in the morning. It was like any other morning. I meditated every morning for 20, 30 minutes. But for whatever reason, this morning, I had this super strong visualization just appear, where we were in the lunchroom at my high school, and in from the back door where everyone came in and out of from the parking lot, where teachers would come from, or parents to come pick up their kids for lunch, or older siblings would come pick up their kids or their siblings to go for lunch. A guy came in. Everyone me and my friends were all sitting at the desk. We all looked back. No one really knew him, so we just turned back around. But then he walks right up to our table, and then walks up to me specifically. And then I look up, and I realize it was my big brother. And I get up, I hug him, and in that moment, I break out of the meditation, start crying. And part of the reason was I don't have a big brother, and I recognized in that moment that I was craving this strong male role model, and I didn't have it. And then a phrase flashed through my mind that stuck with me until this fork in the road when I was 24. That was become the big brother that I never had. And so in this 3-month period, you take me going on the self-development journey that I recognize that through all 24 different jobs and businesses that I started, the only thing that stayed consistent was the relentless pursuit on becoming my best self through my body, through my mind, through my spirit. And then pair that with a huge void of my dad not being there for me, and then recognizing how important that was and how much I craved that. And the last piece was I started to look into the world as I looked into this with myself and my life. I'm like, oh, this isn't just a me problem. This is every 7 out of 10 guys problem that were, more fatherless homes than ever before. Depression rates are higher than ever before. Suicide rates are 4x that of women. Leading cause of death of men under 50 is suicide. Testosterone down 50%. And there's just like this picture that just instantly painted over this 3-month period that just came crashing in front of me. I'm like, holy shit, this is the thing that I've been like prepping for without knowing it. Like all 24 of these jobs and businesses actually led me to this wide range of skill sets that I could just jump in and have the sovereignty to like do everything on my own and start this thing, from the network that I built in StudentWorks and, in the tech startups that I was in, to learning how to develop my physique on my own, to there's like the mindfulness and going on some crazy shrooms trips. Like all of this just came into this pinnacle. I'm like, I'm here to become the big brother that I never had. And that duty just like flooded into my soul. And I just got so clear at that point. And then the next evolution was what's the vehicle that I'm here to, or what's the vehicle that's going to allow me to actually like bring this mission into the world? From a business standpoint, like I need to have a profit. I need to like bring in cash to sustain me and then to like build the mission. And then what is the thing that's going to allow the men coming in to be served the best by me? And where it started is obviously very different, and we can chat about that. But those kind of like those factors all came into that point where Above Men was started as a coaching business, and then just ran from there. But yeah, the synopsis is becoming the big brother I never had.
Yeah. Wow. Super powerful. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you digging back at the roots.
Yeah. So obviously that's where I've come into the picture, and I did Above Men for 3 years. In those 3 years, you came into the picture at some point, not as you sit here in front of me today, but I'd love to have everyone understand how you got into the picture and what caught your interest, and then how that ended up leading into us being across on the table together and being in business now for over a year.
Yeah. Would love to share that. So it was 2021, I believe. And I remember a conversation with my mentor at the time, Devin, about nuts that I brought to an in-person meeting we were hosting. I actually brought them. I think they were from Costco. And before he tried one, he read the ingredients label and was like, I'm not going to eat these, bro. These have canola oil in them. And I looked at him with a bit of a funny face, like, why would that influence your decision-making? I said, you got to meet this guy, Cam. Like, he knows everything and about pretty much everything that you need to become the best version of yourself. So he put us in contact. I reached out to set up a sales call originally. Mm-hmm. And I remember leading up to the call, I learned a little bit more about you, your personal brand, the space that you were building. And Devin, a couple weeks prior, asked me if you could do anything in the world and not have to worry about the financial side of it, what would you do? And I shared that I would empower others to find fulfillment and chase the best version of themselves through coaching and retreats. And he said, like, this just reaffirms the need to have a conversation with this guy, Cam. So I remember we got on a sales call, and because I had a good amount of experience in sales before then, I think I opened with something like, listen, bro, I'm sold. And I just want to hear more about you, the mission, like the origin story, as I just asked. Where did you get your start? What are you working towards? And some of the stats you shared, like 85% of men that are currently in prison grew up in a household without a present father. Suicide rates in North America are 4 times higher for men than they are for women. I heard those thoughts, and I had never consciously decided who I was looking to serve in my, I would say, just like service of the world. But this felt like a great predetermined mission and decision that I could almost tack onto as a second in command. So that was the mission. That's how I would say you caught my interest. I then went through the one-to-one coaching program, obviously for about 6 months. At the time I was dealing with a breakup. I was like fluffy, drinking a good amount, praising my high school heroes, and just not fulfilled. I felt like there was elements of my development that were missing that prevented me from walking with my chest puffed out and my confidence where I wanted it to be. But it was really hard for me, again, without a big brother, without, I would say, a role model of a dad. It was hard for me to ask those questions and look for that guidance. So it just clicked immediately, and professionally, I had spent my time running a home service business through StudentWorks, and I got very good at operations, very good at finding a framework and then developing it, implementing it, and being the operations person. So when I came across you, I thought this guy is A, onto something, and B, a visionary, and C, like a genius in a lot of ways. He's developed the brand, the story, like he is the guy that is capable of bringing this to the masses. And what is my role going to be? How can I have the most impact in the world? And I realized it, in some ways would be showing my face, but in a lot of ways, it's just like being the back end and empowering someone like you to show face to the public. I remember when we first started working together last January, I shared, listen, man, your time is at this point just worth more than mine. So whether it's doing groceries, cooking breakfast, I'm happy to just be a support, to let you do what you feel called to do. And it's benefited and impacted my life in more ways than I could possibly imagine. And I feel super grateful now to be in a position to have a conversation like this and very much be like peers and be able to support each other in multiple ways. So, very, very grateful for how it ended up.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I've said a lot, like we've chatted about before, I think we've done a good job continue to celebrate each other in that sense. But one thing that I always say, and I almost feel like there's a deeper sense of gratitude when I say it behind your back, is just like how blessed I am to have just Tycho kind of like roll into my life, especially when the conversation comes up of like, yo, you and Tycho are business partners. How did you find him? I'm like, to be honest, I don't have a good answer because it's just like, he just showed up, which is crazy. And then the only thing I can relate or I can refer it back to is like, I just knew I wasn't going to be able to do this on my own because of like how big the mission is. And this is a bigger conversation that we have with our city leads and how we're building this business in general. But I just knew this mission was just so far beyond just like one guy leading ship. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do this alone. I don't want to do it on alone. I've been a lone wolf. It's not the way to do it. And the fact that you just like showed up, part of that comes down to me believing in law of attraction. And I was putting it out there. And then just like you showed up. And part of it is just like so grateful that you just A, came into my life, but then B, and I think this is the working relationship that we have. Not only did you come into my life and want to just make this work, but then we're just so complementary in our skills. And like the crazy part is, if anyone hasn't read Traction or you're not understanding of like the CEO, COO dynamic, like me and Tycho are like the perfect embodiments of a visionary and integrator, CEO, COO, like roles. And our skills just overlap so crazy. And it was a cool thing to watch unfold as we started to get to know each other's like strength and differences and characteristics and tendencies, to see that there's people out there that like doing what you don't like doing and vice versa. Like that's such a crazy thing to me. That's like, wow, so cool that you don't have to enjoy and you don't have to do everything. And just because you delegate it to someone doesn't mean they don't like doing it, which is so cool. And that's what I love about teamwork and I love about brotherhood and I love about community is humans just kind of fit this bigger puzzle, but on an individual level, like you're very fragmented and singular. But as a group, you become this like whole integrated unit. And I really felt that. And that's why I was just like so blessed to have a partner come into my world that wants to like join the mission early on and like take a bet on me and take a bet on like, this is the mission that's worth putting your life towards, but then be like having it as such a fucking good fit. So crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'll reciprocate that gratitude because I could have invested my operational capabilities on a very different mission and felt a lot of like a very different sense of fulfillment. It's that old adage that if you change the direction that a plane is flying by 1 degree, you end up like somewhere totally different by the time the plane gets there. So shout out Gino Wickman, shout out Rocket Fuel. Would highly recommend if you haven't read it. Cam, could you speak on that process a little bit of making one, like the solopreneur, the person really driving Above Men at the time, how it felt to transfer some of that ownership to another person and almost watching one become two?
Yeah, it is a good question. And it's, I think, one of the harder things that founders are going to face as they grow from it just being their thing to it being everyone's thing. Because like if a team is truly going to be all in, everyone on the team has to have some level of ownership or sense of ownership over the business. And that means like part of what your vision is becomes evolved into what the collective thinks the vision should be and wants it to be and like feels aligned with it.
Because there's people that say if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And playing at this magnitude, that stops working eventually.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's solopreneurs watching that are in that transitionary period of, do I enroll others to help me convey this mission? Do I leverage AI? Do I stay a one-man show? Like how did that process go for you?
I mean, I think because I've always had just such a huge vision of what I wanted once I started thinking about Above Men and like what I was really trying to solve for. Because again, it started as a one-to-one coaching business, and I just knew, I didn't know what the next thing was, but I just knew the one-to-one coaching was just like the tip of the iceberg, and that probably wasn't going to be the end outcome of what this business was going to like stem from. Like that wasn't going to be the main vehicle, and I never really felt that, because I'm like, yo, if we really want to impact as many men as possible, like we need to find vehicles that allow us to go wide and reach as many men as possible. So because of that, because I had that mission, I just knew at some point there was going to be multiple faces and multiple like leaders in this business that would have direct ownership over this. And so part of me was like willing and ready for me to not be the only one that has a say over the business, because I'm like, yo, it would be selfish of me to sit here and be like, my vision's the best, and like I should be the only one that like has a say at where we should go. And just having that humility in a way where it's like, I don't know everything. I need to continue to lean into what my superpower is and refine that, and then find great people to balance me out and give differing perspectives for the single truth of like helping as many men as possible self-actualize. So I think because I'm taking that lens, and because I genuinely in my bones believe that this is first and foremost a mission we're going after, and secondly, a business that we're creating and running, that is like, what's the best for the business, or sorry, for the mission? And then, yes, does it make sense for the business in the sense of like, we're not running a nonprofit here. We got to make sure that we're paid. We got to make sure that the business has enough money to sustain, but it's always like mission first, kind of like Jeff Bezos of like customer first or customer obsessed. I would say in the same vein, this is like, we're doing what's best for the mission in alignment with the business. And as a result of that, I've always just come back to, okay, like Tycho's bringing this different perspective, or someone on the team is bringing this different perspective. Like, even though that might go against what I originally thought, it's like, is this actually what's going to get us to help as many men as possible? Yes. Okay. My ego's got to get set aside. And as long as I continue to operate from that lens, it's actually been a pretty easy thing to do. But I can see why a lot of founders get caught up on that, because a lot of founders, especially today, because it's so easy to get into entrepreneurship and there's so many guys operating from boy psychology. It's like, as soon as that operator or that founder that is operating from boy psychology has someone else come in the business and be a bit more of a shining star than them, or have a bit more of a better idea than them, they feel like, oh, this guy's trying to steal my thunder, and I got to like suppress it and be more of the tyrant and the dictator and be like, no, like, it's my business. I'm going to, whatever I say goes. And I think those guys are going to have a really hard time. And I think that's why it's been so easy for me, is it's not about me. And at times I get the ego stroke that I get to be the face, like one of the funny things of just like running so many paid ads and having such big reach in local cities is I get approached all the time. I actually had an all-time high that we had 4 guys yesterday come up to me and a girl throughout the day and be like, yo, you're Actualize, right? And I was like, that's sick.
This was yesterday?
Yeah. Wow. That's sick. And those are like just small little like side benefits that I also got to keep at bay. Is like, don't let that go to your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been one thing. And then the other thing is like more in the tangible operation is delegation and just having trust that like, if you truly believe that Tycho's the right person for this, or Angela's the right person for the role that she's in, it's like delegating that leadership in that area of the business, that they're going to be making the best decisions for what's best for the mission, if those are the norms you set for the company. And it starts with like the norms and the foundation and the values that we set, and being clear on the mission and not losing sight of what the most important thing for the mission is. And then having really competent, self-governing people in those roles that you first and foremost trusted them for that role. And then as long as you trust them, then you're going to trust the decisions they're making because they're clear on the outcome that we're going for. And that's how my mind's like operated on that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've done a really good job in putting a lot of trust in you and Angela and the membership team, and even in Yarrow, as we've started to understand as a collective what we're here to do. And that takes a bit of time. Like I know you even alluded to the fact that you were upfront not as confident in your ability to make decisions on behalf of the business because you didn't fully see the vision. And I respected that. And now it's like such a radical shift in your confidence, in your like sovereignty within the business, because you're like, I get the mission. I am the mission now. Like I embody the mission. And so now all decisions that Tycho's making, I'm like, yeah, I'm down. Like you don't even have to tell me now. It's like, just make the decision because I trust you and your ability to see what the mission is and be in alignment with that.
Yeah. One thing I want to exemplify that I think you demonstrated through the decision of bringing me on is because you're representing a mission first and foremost. The question really comes down to impact. And if someone like me approaches you and says, hey, I want to join the mission, I think the traditional thought process is, okay, can I carve them out a slice of the pie? And will they be happy with that size of the slice? And will I be happy without it? Versus, this is clearly an A player. They can probably grow the pie by a substantial amount more than they would ask for. So playing that just infinite sum game. And I think we've seen that very clearly with Angela, with Yarrow, with myself, with you. Everyone bringing their unique skill set.
Yeah.
We're just capable of operating at such like a greater extent. And you touched very briefly there on boy psychology, which I know we read and talk about.
Yeah.
How has your psychology transitioned through the course of this business? And where do you see it going from here?
I think this business has forced like the full transition or initiation, as King Warrior Magician Lover would call it, from boy to man. Like every man has the opportunity in his life when he is a boy to initiate into manhood and to move from boy psychology to man psychology. And the simplest maxim that we could look at for these two, just if anyone isn't clear on what these two are, boy psychology, your orientation in life is how can the world serve me? And man psychology is how can I serve the world? Fucking banger. Okay. And so when you start a business like this, and you genuinely are doing this for a mission that is beyond yourself, not for the money purely. Listen, I want to fucking get loaded. I want to have a ton of money. I want to have sovereignty. I want to do all that stuff. But if that was my pure intention, and I told this to a lot of guys early on, especially when I was doing the coaching business, I would have not started the business that I started if it was from a place of money. There's so many better vehicles to make a lot of money, and we've even chatted about that. And so when I started this business, it forced me to step into my manhood and to operate from a place of man psychology. And it tested me so many times, especially when it wasn't working. Like when I was doing the coaching thing, and I had a lot of like organic success early on, but I couldn't break past that like 20K a month, and I couldn't break any into like the paid ad side of things with that current offer. And it was like testing me, and I had all these literal tests in my life from going viral and having the opportunity to step out of this as a vehicle, from joining Founders Club. I think there was 3 core tests that came up that like, are you truly about this mission or are you not? And in each of those, it tested my integration into my man psychology and my alignment with the mission. And at each of those, it strengthened my ability to step further and further into operating full time from a place of man psychology and serving the world versus what can the world serve me with. And then now having a team, that's gone like another level deeper, because it was first and foremost making decisions for a mission and something bigger than myself and putting myself as kind of the last to eat. And then now coming and bringing a team on board. And I think both of us are on this page where it's like, okay, we have others that are now counting on us. And we now have like humans in our community that are counting on us. And we now have to put what our needs are on the back burner, specifically from a financial standpoint, because we could be personally bringing home a lot more cash if we said, you know what, this business is cash flowing. Let's just play the roles that we need to just bring in a ton of cash. But we're like, no. The mission requires us to get paid a base salary and pay other team members to come on board so we can grow this thing.
Pay them more a lot of times.
Literally paying them more than what we're being paid. And so it's just reinforcing every single day. Like, and this is why I love entrepreneurship, because it's, as I like to call it, the best self-development program in the world. And it's a result of every single day being faced with these decisions to either step forward into growth or back into comfort or safety. And specifically being a mission-driven business, you have to constantly be asking yourself, what's the best for others, not myself? And myself will eventually come if we help enough people, and we're confident in that. So it's just constantly like, it's been a internal or a default accountability system to be a man, truthfully, right? Because I see so many businesses out there right now, or I should say business owners that are in their 20s, even in their 30s and 40s and 50s, that are operating from a place of boy psychology, that are playing the competition game, playing the status game, playing the how do I make so much money for myself game. And again, I want to make money, but is that my primary driver? No. And as a result of that, they're going to constantly make decisions through how does the world serve me? And I just don't think that's serving them if they want to step into the best version of themselves. So I just love playing this mission-driven business game and looking at the bigger picture, because it's a built-in accountability tool to show up as a man and continue to like integrate all parts of yourself to allow yourself to step into this role that makes no sense if you are playing the boy psychology game.
For myself, I've big time seen leverage actually serve as an accountability tool. And you probably experienced this when you stepped into one-on-one coaching as well. But I think the best way to hold yourself accountable to going to the gym is to coach somebody else on that exact thing.
Huge.
So when they show up Monday morning, like, you know, you're going to feel like an imposter if you have to hold someone else accountable. So I find representing now a community of near 300 guys, it dictates a lot of the philosophy and the principles that govern my decision-making and your decision-making, because we almost don't have a choice.
Yeah.
If those guys that recognize you from our paid ads saw you outside of Paris, Texas, like 10 pints deep, smoking a cigarette, and it's like, wait, that's incongruent with this guy I see online. That doesn't make sense. And it takes years to build a reputation, a couple minutes to ruin one. So I've definitely noticed that for myself as well.
Totally, dude. And this is the beautiful thing about life design as well, is because I think I've done an incredibly good job at designing my life very consciously now that I started this business. And as I've asked these bigger questions in my life and specifically got clear on my values, is what is the business that I do want to run? How is it going to be in congruency with the things I want to do day to day and the type of person that I want to become and be? And so to your point, it's just like, this business asks the best version of me to be in shape, to be mentally dialed in, to have great relationships with the other people around me, to hold myself to a higher standard. Because if I don't, I can't get away with being overweight, being out of shape, going to Paris, Texas, you know, right? Like it just does. And I want that, like I'm pre-committing to my best self. And that was what I asked of myself when I first started this. I'm like, what is a goal so fucking big that the only way that I can achieve this thing is by stepping into the best version of myself, not once in a while, but every single day. And if I don't, I fail. And that would be true if half the time we were stepping into the best version of ourselves and playing the virtue game, and half the time we were, you know, taking 5 weekends off and just like going out and drinking and whatnot. It's like, it wouldn't have worked from a place of leadership, place of branding, but also wouldn't work to like from the work we need to put in to achieve this kind of goal, right? So I love that about like designing your life intentionally and putting things around you, an environment around you, and making these pre-commitments that just ask a certain version of you that you get to be held to as a result of like designing that life, which is so cool.
Yeah. Well, I heard a lot there about what drove you originally to this vehicle. And I'm curious now that the business is a little bit more substantial than when it first originated. You shared 20K months were like the gold standard. You know, now we're nearing 200, 250K months. What now drives you day to day? Like what keeps you working?
Yeah, I definitely think it's the same thing. And as we get more into the business, I'd love to actually pause and kind of give the people like a snapshot on kind of where we're at. So obviously you just alluded to some of the revenue targets. Like we've more or less like 10x where I was kind of at that ceiling since pivoting. Now we're in the multi 6-figure bracket a month, which is amazing. And another funny thing on one of the first YouTube videos I put, I was like our one target, and even our target, my target before you came into the picture, and then our target that we had was when we had everyone over, not everyone, but we had like 5 guys over, and we're like, yo, how do we get to 50K a month? And that was our whole goal. It's like, yo, let's get a 150K a month in the door. And now it's like, that's hygiene plus. Like, bro, if we're doing 50K, like, you know, so that's really cool. But members, where are we currently at with members right now? How many total members do we have?
As of today, about 290.
290. So we're basically at 300. Team size? Team size would be internal team plus our city leads.
Yeah. Plus city leads, I think 18, and then a handful of contractors that handle different types of projects.
Which is insane. And active cities that we have?
5.
And then roughly new members per month that we're bringing on?
75. With a goal to hit 90 in April.
And then the city with the most members?
Toronto.
With around 200 members in Toronto. And then what in your, right now with all the cities on the map, what's the city you're most excited about with like the potential that they have? I got my answer.
I've always liked the idea of Vancouver because I hear it's very cliquey. And what I've noticed about Toronto is geographically, there doesn't feel like anywhere to go width-wise. So I've noticed that people almost go height-wise. Like there's way more like huge jacked guys here than I would say there are in Vancouver. In Vancouver, if you want to get jacked, you go for a hike, you go mountain biking. But here it's like, wait, let me stack like in a way on top of the people around me. So they're cranking workouts at the gym. They're connecting like over something like alcohol, over something like nightlife. Because there's nowhere to go.
There's not as many,
Yeah, there's not as many outlets, like people kind of group together. So because the relationships are more like context driven in Vancouver around activities, there seems to be a lot of like isolation, a lot of guys building themselves, not a lot of vitamin D maybe with all the rain. So I'm excited about Vancouver, but the feedback that I've got from Calgary, from like the 15 members or so that we have there right now, it's just like Toronto almost has community for certain types of people built in. And in Calgary, it seems like there's just nothing, nothing except Actualize.
Yeah, 100%. I also am excited for Calgary because I've started to learn a bit more of like the kind of people that are there. And we've had some really strong candidates coming out of Calgary. And I'm also very excited about Montreal. Those I'd say that the two that I'm really excited about. Montreal, there's like a ton of very ambitious guys, but both of those cities have come like pretty quickly, and there's been amazing guys that have like come up and be like, yo, like this is how we want to help. And I'm just super excited for the possibility of both of those.
We're almost building there by request. Like Toronto, Vancouver, we decided on.
Vancouver
was requested.
Yeah.
And now Calgary is like, boys, if you don't create some sort of container here, I'm going to need to do it myself.
Yeah. Cool. So that's kind of the snapshot on where we're at right now. And just for context, this business model is a new business model from what I originally was doing and what Tycho originally came in for, which was coaching. We did one-to-one coaching. I built a course. We kind of moved in the group, and then Tycho came in. We went back to one-to-one. And then in June of 2025, we officially made the pivot from a coaching business to a membership community, where now it's kind of like this new business category that I've been calling like community as a service instead of SaaS, like it's CaaS. So this is kind of the business model we're operating on. We're relaunching our coaching, which I'm really excited for at some point down the road. But that's the business model, annual membership. And we're about to launch a new tier, which is really exciting. 300 members with X amount of cities, yada, yada, yada. So that's the snapshot where we're at. Details of the community membership, that's not for this conversation, but I just want to like catch them up to date. That's like from June to now, we're like going on to our 9th month. We're already 300 members strong, which is crazy. And okay, so that's where we're at. Back to your question, which was what gets me fired up now from where it was. It honestly is the same, I would say, to put it bluntly, because why I started it, I feel like we're only now just getting into what I feel like is the starting point of what my original vision was, which is being able to have a place where we can start to help more and more men and start to go really wide, and just getting or having a container for a wider range of individuals at differing stages. And this is why Tribe's going to be important, is like, if we truly want to help 1 million men self-actualize, which is kind of like, you know, my internal North Star kind of benchmark, you need to have structure and systems that can accommodate for such a wide range of individuals. So it's still the same. It's just like helping 1 million men self-actualize, and just knowing that we can truly raise the tide in the standard, or as I actually just reworded it in my bio on the new website, we can redefine what the standard is for strong masculine men in a modern era, in a post-internet, post-information, post-AI era. It's like the name of the game has changed. We're not trying to go back to some outdated way that, like, when masculine men were around and they were like serving their communities, like that was very different. Like what it meant to be a strong masculine man was like facing the brutal reality of like wars and going out there and serving their country selfishly, right? Now it's different. Like, yes, wars are happening, but it's radically different, the landscape on all levels. And so I think we have the opportunity, and this is the thing that fires me up, is like we truly have the opportunity to redefine what, or put back into the common man's eye and mind, what it means and what it looks like and how to be a strong masculine man in a modern world. And that just fired, like, that's the thing that I get fired up about. That's the thing that I'm driving for. And when we're building these containers, when we're building the business, when we're making decisions on what we should and shouldn't do, it's with that in mind. And that just gets me so fired up, knowing we have that possibility to be the movement, the brand, the individuals to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to hypothesize a little bit. It almost feels like the transition from coaching to community was a part of your evolution to man psychology. Not that you were serving as a coach out of ego, but you realized, wait, the gravity of this mission needs to be, in order for us to serve as many people as we want to serve, we need to decentralize. We're not going to do that through these like one-off experts on different topics and like, you know, holding someone's hand. We need, because I think what you shared with me was you would have amazing conversations with very competent guys like myself, like Devin, like OG. OG is literally an OG. And you'd be like, wait, if these two guys that I just met with separately just hosted this call together, they could provide a lot of the same feedback and context that I can. Yeah. So how can we just facilitate rooms, containers, you know, masterminds for these people to meet each other and, you know, cut the price in half.
Totally.
To be able to empower more people. And I think the second thing that it did was it addressed the 0 to infinite guy, because coaching has a bit of like a I need help connotation, which I don't actually think it was for above men at all. I think it was guys that were crushing it maybe in like 90% of the fronts of their life, but they're like, wait, my energy is good. I want it to be great. My relationship's good. I want it to be great. But now the 0 to infinite guy, and he's like, wait, my time is worth too much to meet with a so-called like expert that's not doing like 100, 200, 300K in their business, because that's what I'm optimizing for. So I just want to get around like-minded people. I don't want the coaching. Like, you know, what products do you have for me? Yeah. And because we're still offering coaching, or we're about to relaunch it, there's still a place for that support, but it caters, I would say, more to the type of guys, honestly, that we are.
Yeah, and I would actually, one of the reasons that I originally saw community as a precursor for making this mission as big as we want it, or the impact of the mission to be as big as we want it, is what I was also recognizing in the coaching space is if you're truly doing a great job for coaching, you will take them from A to B, whatever that transformation is. And then once they're at B, you either need to do one of two things. You need to graduate them and say, hey, great job. We've done the work that we're here to do. Like, go back into the world. Or two, you now need to find something else to solve for them. And so you need to then take them from B to C. And so that becomes like this like kind of hamster wheel thing. And the dark side of coaching and the dark side of therapy and all of these like, coaching and consulting models is like part of you doesn't want them to graduate because you want to keep them in your circle so you can keep them having to pay. And that's what I didn't like feeling like I needed to like battle against. I'm like, man, imagine if we had the coaching, but then once they graduated to B, they like came into a container with all the other Bs. We had all these guys that went from A to B, and now you're around a bunch of guys that have made the A to B transformation. And now the thing that is going to keep the B transformation and keep them from not reversing back is community. And that was the piece I'm like, oh, if we start with community and just bring everyone in, not only is that going to have a stronger like side effect of them making their own A to B transformation kind of like naturally with each other, but then B, when we relaunch coaching, because that's a very important part, the education, you either have like outside in transformations, which is a community, or inside out information. And if we can have both of those, then we can attack them from both sides and just have such a scalable impact. So that's why I was so bullish on community, because now, and what I was seeing was guys would make the A to B, they would go back into their friend group, and their friend group would be not caring about seed oils, not caring about their weekends. They'd be going and partying. And then you'd be submitted back into this environment that you tried to remove yourself out of by changing how you behaved and the things you did, but then going back into an environment that got you in that position in the first place. And that's, I think, a big problem that the coaching space is facing. I think we're solving that at a fundamental level with this business model, where community first and foremost. And then if you want the help beyond just how the community helps you make that transformation, we can do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so bullish about that, because to the point of the infinite game, if we're building it properly, this should be genuinely something that they want to be a part of for life, because it's a brotherhood. And back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that was the other big thing I realized, was it is a need to have a sense of community and belonging and brotherhood. Like that never goes away, right? Making the transformation from not knowing what to eat and then knowing what to eat, that need then goes away because now I have that information. I don't need it anymore, so I don't need you as a coach. But the need for brotherhood and community will always exist. And if we can continue to be that space for guys, like we're here for the infinite game as well.
Mm-hmm. You might not even realize this, but that hypothesis was tested true in the last month with our first two coaching clients of 2025.
True.
Pat and Hugh. They both, without a call, without coercion, they both renewed for a year of community. And with Hugh, I noticed that from firsthand experience, he was potentially in some ways operating at a deficit. And even after the coaching relationship, he shared like, I'm now sufficient. I know how to track my workouts. I know how to track my calories. He like looks peeled, is shredded, showing up powerfully for his relationship. He's like, wait, now that I know what the standard I want to hold myself to is, and I've defined self-actualization for myself, now I really just need a community and an environment
to reflect that
and helps it stick. One of the great takeaways I had from my time at StudentWorks was that success is 10% skill set, 40% mindset, and 50% environment.
Yeah.
Because you can have all the intention in the world, and if you open the fridge and see the things you don't want to eat, you're going to eat them.
Totally, dude.
So,
totally.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So powerful. So I'm really stoked for this, the way we're building right now. Like I feel it is laying the foundation for what will be the scale of impact that we want to create. And you brought up decentralization, which is another important part. I don't know if there's time on this podcast, but I'd love to on another conversation explain like why we're so bullish on building from a place of decentralization, how that looks, what that entails, and building differently than a centralized model. So I think that's a really important piece. And the other piece, again, being mission driven, is I have no problem laying out how we're building this in a decentralized manner for potentially another guy to hear this, pick it up, and start building another community in a decentralized model, because we need, and I say this to guys, thousands of more leaders like us, and probably thousands of more communities like us for the standard to reshift. So we should pencil that and or pin that and come back to decentralized, because that's a really important part of what we're doing. It's very untraditional, having these city leads and like handing off the playbook on how we're building our business to guys in the community and be like, yo, you have ownership over this city now. Like, that's a pretty radical concept. And they're not even like full internal team members, and we're just giving them the playbook. Like, that's not something that's seen a lot in these like for-profit business models today, right?
Yeah. For context, City Lead is basically hosting workouts, dinners, and socials in a new city month to month,
and being the representative that like shines in that city. He's like, yo, I'm the guy that's managing the city for Actualize, on Actualize's behalf.
Yeah. You mentioned there the word leader. We need thousands of more leaders to represent mission, really this mission and missions like this. So in our hiring process for city leads, even in your sense of self, what would you say makes up a leader, and what gives someone in a way the right to, stand with their back straight and preach?
I think first and foremost is that they've displayed a high level of agency in themselves by leading themselves. Like, that's the place I always come back to anytime I'm asked about like leadership is the individual that is asking to be a leader, have they led themselves first and foremost? And that then speaks about, or that then like points to what results did they have in their life that would symbolize or show evidence that they're competent to lead in that domain. Like, it's always baffled me that it's even legal for an out of shape person to be a personal trainer.
Shout out Altia.
Bro, like, what? Or an accountant that doesn't have his money put together. It's like, bro, how are you are not a leader in any sense. Like, you should not have the right to be someone who leads someone else to get in shape or to manage their money or to be in a relationship. And so that's the first thing is, have you displayed a high level of like sovereignty and agency that you yourself have gone and done it on your own in whatever domain that you're wanting to lead in. And not only that is like, even if you get put in a role of a position of leadership and you haven't done it for yourself, to go from being a leader, a good leader, to a great leader that someone truly wants to follow you, not because they are forced to, because say it's in a corporate setting and someone's been like elected this role versus they've earned this role, then you have to now earn the right of everyone's listening and respect and willingness to listen to what you're doing and do it out of a place of like want instead of need. From, again, if you're in a corporate setting and someone's now been hired into this like management role, it's like, I now need to listen to this person, not because they've earned it in any way, shape, or form, because they've been elected into that leadership role. Like, that only goes so far. And yeah, you can be a leader in the sense of, yeah, I manage a team of like 5 people, but are you earning their respect and willingness to have them follow you into battle or follow you into this transformation that you're making? It always comes down to, first and foremost, self-leadership. And that shows up on doing what you say you're going to do. That is one of my core principles, is like, walk the fucking talk, man. And that's the beautiful thing, back to what we were talking about, building a community and doing coaching, is it forces you, if you want to be a great coach, if you want to be a great community leader, you have to be doing at all times what you say you want your other members to do, and what you want your clients to do, what you want your students to do, what you want your members to do. So that's it for me. I'm curious, because you're obviously coming from a much stronger like coaching background, how you see leadership and what's important to you.
I'll echo everything you said, walking the talk. And then the other distinction I'll make is, a lot of times when I coach someone who's making more money than me or is older or has more life experience, would say I need to have a certain amount of agency and confidence in my ability to lead myself, but I also need to facilitate more than I need to educate, because we grew this community, or you started this community for your younger self. Now we're attracting guys like Dario, who's older than you and has, technically speaking, more days under his belt.
Yep.
So how can we be a leader for Dario? It's really facilitation.
Yeah.
Right? Asking great questions, allowing him to reflect on himself, putting him in a room with someone that can answer some of the questions that we potentially can't. So it's less, I think leadership is in a lot of ways being open-minded, and again, swallowing your ego and thinking, this is not about me playing a pivotal role in this person's life. This is not about me seeming like an authority figure. This is me being a catalyst for the best thing for somebody else. And a lot of the ways that's, one thing I've started to say in my roles, a lot of the times that just means getting the fuck out of the way.
Right. Yeah. That's good. One piece that just came up that I might as well mention is communication, I think, is a really important one. And then the other piece would be confidence as well. I think for someone to really want to follow someone, like, yes, they need to see the result and be like, okay, if I'm going to follow this person towards this result, then I want to know that this person actually has the proof for it. But the other piece is like, they could have it. They could be the jack guy, or they could be the one in the great relationship. But every time I hear him speak, it's like really watered down. It's, very weak in their tone, and they're not that certain about themselves, even if they have the result. And I think that's one thing that I've always been good at, is even if I didn't have the results per se, or if I didn't fully know what I was talking about, I always had just such delusional conviction in what I was speaking about. And I always had, one of my superpowers and why we play the roles that we do is like, I consider myself that visionary, and I've always had strong visions of like what is possible for the individual across the table from me, or what is possible for this world that we can co-create, and having that like certainty and that clarity on where we're going. Like, for someone to lead, they need to know where we're leading them. Where am I going to take you? And is that the promised land that you want to go to, that I want to go to, and making sure that we have the right people on the ship. And I think that's a super important piece, is like, if you're going to be a leader, where are you leading them to? And having that vision, and then being able to communicate that effectively with certainty and conviction and confidence. So that's great. Which I'd be curious what it's like being business partners with me.
I'm going to ask it back after. There's a lot of appreciation that comes up week to week about your willingness to look out beyond what my eyes could see. The analogy I use to describe it to our internal team is that I see you as someone who's standing in the crow's nest of the ship, and you've got a long beard, you've got your binoculars, you're writing in like a notepad, a journal, you're spending a lot of time looking out at what there is to steer towards, and then also looking internally at how you perceive those opportunities and what you think makes sense. And then I would consider myself to be the like quote unquote captain of the ship, as my predictive index will tell you. So I'm holding the steering wheel. And then when you shout out that you see something in the distance or you want to work towards something, I'm kind of like the only person that can hear you, because I'm standing right underneath holding the steering wheel. And then we've got someone that owns the mast, and someone that owns the stews and like the deckhands. And to answer your question more directly, I think there's almost like a translation that I'm responsible for of the big picture and the mission orientation and all of the different things that you look at and see, that I, maybe not translation, but a distillation, if that's a word. So I hear, let's say 10 to 15 ideas a week. And I would say all of them are great ideas in some context and through some lens. But I then try and battle test that perspective of what the business's resources are like at the time, what our human capital is, what our priorities are. So some distilling of ideas. I would say it's a constant, I'd say you're on a constant search for improvement in yourself, and that radiates outward to me. I'm thinking critically, I'm reflecting on my weeks. I think the entire team is just rising up to the standard that you set for yourself and the mission. And it's got a healthy balance of fun attached to it. I can be very, we use the word pessimistic, but tactical, day-to-day, short-term oriented. Yeah. And then when we went to Tulum for our offsite in January, you were adamant about getting out to see some live music. Mm-hmm. So we saw Camel Fat with, I think, 7 team members. Yeah. And you were voting to stay till 6, 7 a.m., just dancing deep into the night. Mm-hmm. So, if I was only to listen to my own intuition, I think I would neglect some of those bigger picture things and that longer term orientation of, no, this isn't going to help the bottom line, but what impact could this have on culture and the direction we're heading and the creativity that comes from taking time away from work. So that would be my answer. And I'd love to hear what your experience has been like with me.
Yeah. Before I do, I'll ask one more and then we'll flip over to the integrator side. Is what would you say the hardest part of working with a visionary is?
I would guess that there are integrators out there working with visionaries that take things personally. One of the fables that's resonated with me in the last couple months is the idea of Atlas, who is a character in Greek mythology who's sentenced to hold the weight of the world, as it says. And when I come to you when you come to me with an idea that you love, and I have to, in some ways, be the bearer of bad news, sometimes publicly as well, sometimes in front of the team, you're like, hey, guys, I wanted to do this thing. And it's like, we're not doing it because, Tycho is putting his foot down and he doesn't think it's a vibe. I think, objectively speaking, that would be one of the hardest parts. I actually think that comes quite naturally to me. I'm very...
Yeah, I'm super grateful for that as well.
I'm very okay to just be that guy. I remember last year around this time, we were at a leadership conference for Vantage, a group of door-to-door sales leaders. And their management team is very similar, made up of BQ and Will McCallum. And BQ, after a glass of champagne, was sharing, you know what, guys, maybe we'll start a little bit later tomorrow morning. And then Will looks it up on Shape and is like, nope, we're not doing that. So BQ's like, oh, I think Will has something to say. Will, what are your thoughts? And Will's like, we're not doing that. That's not what the schedule says. Yeah. And just, threw his stake in the ground. So that's, I would say, something that's imperative to balance out the relationship is just taking it on the chin and owning being the pessimist. And and then the other thing maybe about you specifically, because you have such a rampant voice for self-improvement, it's balancing criticism and feedback with self-compassion and appreciation. I'm not sure what that dialogue sounds like for you internally. I think it's very healthy, but making sure that if someone associating with you, like myself, if they hear that criticism, then it's seeking maybe some validation or appreciation from you as well. And then also taking the time to appreciate yourself and the things that because the whole space of personal development is a bit of a two-sided coin. Seeking self-actualization can in some ways insinuate that you are not currently self-actualized, right, and that you're working towards this thing that you don't currently orient. So it's definitely an art more than it is a science. But that would be the second point, is just balancing where you're going with how you currently feel. Yeah. Pat Maz mentions it as happily discontent.
Yeah, which I love. I love that philosophy. To all start off on what it's like having you as a business partner, which, again, if anyone's read Traction and then the subsequent book, Rocket Fuel, we use these two words. We've used them a number of times already, but visionary and integrator, CEO, COO. And again, Cam being the visionary, Tycho being the integrator. And so on the flip side, what it's like being business partners with you is that other side of things that's more, again, what do we need to get done? Let's stay focused on the here and now. And I actually want to start by acknowledging some of the things that I've learned as a result of working with that other side of what's required for a business to just continue to move in the right direction, is being ruthlessly focused on the execution side of things, on seeing things through and being like, no, this has to get done, and not like allowing the excitement of new ideas and novelty kind of like take over. Because that was, I think, a big reason why I didn't execute on a lot of ideas that I had when it was just myself. When left to my own demise, I would get way more ideas than I did tasks done. And so those ideas then constantly challenged me to think about, should I do this or this, this or this, this or this? And then because I didn't have a sounding board, I would typically favor for the novel thing and the exciting idea instead of like what was needed for the business with the resources that we had to actually keep the business moving in the right direction. So I've learned a lot more on like executing on what is needed versus what is wanted, and then being more grounded in reality more of the time, because I can be very much like, some helium balloons and just want to kind of like levitate off and kind of be in the clouds a lot of the day. And I've been privileged now to do that because I don't have to focus as much on the execution on some of these parts of the business, having you in the business. But that's taught me to flex that muscle, or not even taught me, it's forced me to use that muscle more as a result of having someone that's just like, that's your natural state. It's like execution, day-to-day decision making, like what do we need to do right now to make sure the business is continuing to like just maintain and operate. And then the last piece is hard conversations and being the bad guy. And I've totally had to flex that more as a result of just having more chances of things not going the way they need to go, whether it's like a team member not operating the way we need them to, thinking we're going to go down this path and then we didn't. One of them that we're going to be speaking about at some point is the summit, right? And just having hard conversations between ourselves, individually, like even facing. I've noticed I've been much quicker to face my kind of wrong decisions, like not wrong decisions, but wrong decisions relative to what the goal is. Like, oh, this is a great idea, and I start running with it, and I'm more quicker to face that it's not the right decision relative to where we want to go. And that's come as a result of having hard conversations and kind of grounding myself back in reality on like, we only have so many resources. We only have so many hours in the day. We need to get this, and this done if we're going to, so having you as a business partner, it's really brought me back down to earth and slowed me down from execute or wanting to like put out more and more ideas. And as these ideas come, like reshuffling where they go, instead of like to the top of the to-do list, they go into like an idea bank, and it's like, okay, these are great, and they'll come up, but being more selective on like what ideas we actually act on, because there's just a core thing that we have promised ourselves, promised the community to, that we need to keep up. And only once those are taken care of, then we can, earn ourselves the right to open up the idea bank and be like, what's next? And so having you as a business partner has allowed that to exist inside of me much easier. And the other piece, and this is one of the first things that we had a lot of conversation on, is just being able to have a very grounded, and this is where like that pessimist in you is very healthy, and the realist in that manner, if you want to use that word, like having the sounding board has been one of the best pieces to uncover my blind spots, which I kind of just alluded to, and being able to come to you and for us to be like, hey, here's this idea, right? Whether it's launching like the women's community or launching, multiple offers in the coaching frame, is like, should we actually do this? And so being able to have two sides of the spectrum of like, realist, optimist. And so we're kind of always finding that middle ground more naturally because we're on both of those spectrums. And that's been great because we think so differently in a lot of ways while having the same set of values. So we're never like trying to pull in different directions on the macro. We're always trying to move in the right direction because we have the same values with the same mission, but how we're coming to the conclusion on like what's best for the business is very natural as a result of just like coming back into the middle a lot of the time. So, yeah.
That's probably the reason, or one of the reasons, why Combinator doesn't accept solopreneurs.
Yeah, man, because it's very rare to have someone that can like exist on both sides of those in their mind over and over and over and over again, especially as the business grows, right? And I think that's also why, if we look at our growth from like pivoting into the community and where we've gotten to, I would say we've moved on the macro of these 8 months very linearly up and to the right. Like just this month, I would say, besides like the seasonality of December and January, but even that macro, like that was just a blip. And like just this month, we're starting to feel a bit of friction on like scaling beyond where we're currently at, which I even think we already are already on it. It's like, okay, great. Tycho's coming to the board. It's like, dude, like, no. Like, this is the most important thing to move. And I'm like, okay, where's the ideas coming from? Let's go. And I think that's why from like month 0 of starting this thing to month 8, if you look at our trajectory of like new members month over month, revenue month over month, like we've just more or less up and to the right. And that's not that common in a lot of businesses, because if you looked at my business before you came into the picture, it was, because I would have a good idea, execute, it would produce some results, but then it wouldn't stay consistent. So that's definitely the outcomes of that. And then it's also characteristics of what it's like being in business partner or being a business partner with you. I'd love to actually reflect on the 8 months a little bit on what you see has been our lowest point in our run together so far. If we've got like a little vulnerable, whether it's like internally for yourself, or if you have something that you see in our business, again, macro, linearly up and to the right, but like micro, there's definitely been moments personally, collectively, that isn't always highs. And I think it's important to put out on the table for other entrepreneurs in our stage of like, dude, not everything is just happening perfectly and smoothly. What comes up for you, if anything?
Whether it's productive or not, I would say our personal relationship has, to a reasonable extent, reflected the performance of the business day to day, week to week, month to month. And most friction I felt, I think, was after Tulum. After the all hands, we decided, well, we were hit with seasonality for the first time, and we did expect to continue down the road of up and to the right, which zooming out we did. But there was a point where we pretty much ran out of money and we're kicking things back up after a month hiatus. We had also turned ads on and off, I think 2 times unnecessarily, which spooked our ad account a little bit, which came from, I would say, poor communication between the two of us. Like, I didn't set great expectations with the membership team. I didn't look through down a long enough time horizon. Like, okay, if we turn them on, when are they coming back on, and that sort of thing. So I felt a bit of friction. I thought, well, like, my mind started to run of like, well, what if? Like, what if we don't bounce back up? What if it doesn't hit this time? What if we run out of money before it starts to work again, quote unquote? And what I would say I leaned on you for in that period is that unapologetic conviction and faith in the mission, because my role is oriented by nature more short-term than yours is. So if I'm being a pessimist, a realist, if I'm looking day to day, then it's like, well, day to day, the business doesn't look good. But if you zoom out and you look long-term, there's all these, all these telling signs that we're going to bounce back up. There's all this equity we built in the brand, in the team. So it's almost like, let's say, leaning on you, your conviction, that long-term orientation, which I've definitely appreciated, but nothing personally, I think that has been a low. We just get a little bit, we also live together for context. We've lived together for the last 14 months since we started the community. And that just makes the personal more professional than the typical co-founder relationship.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think we're on the same page. Like, I think we both felt that. I think there's been 2 kind of low points that kind of coincide with each other, which is that month off. We had such a good time in the sense of company building, and we had everyone down in Tulum, but going off, cutting December short, leaving that month with not I would say a powerful finish, because we didn't realize like what was going on. That was our first December, it was our first holiday. And then leaving that, and I had to just come to terms with, and this is one of the things I said in my first Build in Public videos that I recorded myself, is like, oh, wow, if you want to build a business with like real infrastructure in these early stages, you're going to make a lot of money and not see a lot of money. Like, I remember when we finished out our first 100K month, and you like sent me the screenshot that said like money in, money out on the bank account. And it was like, I don't know, something like $110,000 in and like $95,000 out. I was like, what the fuck? Like, we did that our biggest month, and we also just spent a ridiculous amount of money. And that was like a new set for me, because I had to take, again, a recommitment to that mission driven perspective, where I was expecting, okay, I'm going to fucking, pocket a bunch of money, and, we're going to be able to put some cash into savings and whatnot. It's like, no. Like, you're asking to scale and build real infrastructure in this business. So it's like, personally, I was just like, not over yet. Like, the mission is just starting, bro. And it's like, you're going to see this cash flow, but it's not yet. And just because you hit 2x what you originally wanted to hit, wanted to get that 50K month, we're now at 2x that. And I'm not seeing like anywhere near the amount of money that I want to be seeing, because we're building infrastructure. And so personally, I had to just like take a moment. And I think I even took like that day, because I was just kind of, because I've never been like a finance guy. I've always just been like, yo, let me just go do my thing, and money will eventually come. And that's still my belief today. And that's why it's like you and having Will on board, and like that is more money driven, is important. But that for me was just like, okay, I need to reset expectations with myself, that it's like, if you're going to build a business with real infrastructure at this scale, like, you got to be reconsidering when you're expecting to like have this cash flow for your personal self, because all this money is going somewhere, and it's going back into our team, back into acquiring customers, back into the infrastructure. So that was a big one personally. And I've had these small blips, but I think this is why I've been able to maintain myself from a place of sanity, and still be able to manage my health, still be able to manage, relationships, and not just fully isolate and, let my stress take over. Is, yes, I have these small blips of doubt, and not always I'm like, this is the thing, but I quickly bounce back and was like, no, this is the fucking thing. So there is always those. And then, yeah, like, I think our most friction actually came at our all hands in Tulum, when we were coming to this realization. Is like, oh, we don't have as much money as we thought we did. And I was leaning into you to be like, yeah, you're the money guy. And then we kind of realized like, oh, we're not in the best position that we thought we were. And then we had to refigure it out, we bounced back super strong, hit our goal in January, hit our goal in February, and now we're cruising. So that is the beautiful thing about going through these hard times and like these low points, is for every low point that you go into and come out of, it gives you more like resilience to handle each one moving forward. And you're like, yeah, like, this is just another part of the journey. It's not good or bad. It's not high or low. It's not, right or wrong. It's just is. And if we take it in a very like objective, matter of fact, no judgment place, I think that this allows us to move quicker through them and not be emotionally blinded by like what's actually happening here and how it's contributing to the bigger picture, and not like get caught up and like anchored our attention into the here and now. So
yeah. You shared once that Steve Jobs doesn't believe in feedback meetings, because if there's a need for a feedback meeting, you're not sharing feedback real time as it comes up.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I'll re-emphasize for, co-founders that are listening to this, is either sharing feedback all the time or creating pockets for it. Because I remember in Tulum, we sat down like in your room, like in a very emotional state. And we were like, hey, you're showing up like this, and I'm not vibing with that. I'm showing up like this. You're not vibing with that. We were letting the professional stress influence our personal relationship. And I think it's important to just voice those things and realign from, it's not you versus me. It's us versus, I guess it's not versus anything, but just us on the mission.
Us, yeah. That's super important. And I think that's, again, why I was so bullish and almost was like, yo, if this is going to work the way we want it to, we're living together. Like that was just a conversation that I think we were just both down for. It's like, yo, we're down to pre-commit for at least a year, potentially a few years. We're living together. And now that we've gotten this foundation up and running, like we know where the direction of the business is, I think this is where the conversation, we feel more comfortable kind of like separating and playing our roles in a more sovereign state. Whether it's like, you and Grace living together, whatever. But I agree early on, it's like, yo, the faster the feedback can get back to the individual, the quicker we can go, and the less kind of interpersonal debt that builds up, and that comes up in the form of resentment, frustration, anger, and all these like emotional biases that start to sway people's confidence, people's like buy-in, specifically as two partners. That it's like, yo, if this is going to be the thing I'm devoting my life to, like I sure as hell better feel like this is the best use of my time, and like I want to do it with this person. And I even was talking to my good friend Zach when before the Mentor Mastermind, he came on, and like prior to the conversation, he's like, yo, I'm just so done with my team, and it's really affecting my ability to like want to keep building this company. And I think that's so important to find people, especially your equity partners and your founder, like the partners you're with, that you're first and foremost in alignment on a values level. It's like at the end of the day, all these disagreements that we've had is just like us not being able to figure out the best way to communicate to one another. But as we just iron out these bugs and like, rewrite the program, so it's just a flawless software, if you will, between us, all of those become very easy because the underlying values and how we like approach life and the mission that we're on, both of those are just very grounded. And those are just things that we've pre-committed to, and they're not going to really change. Where the intra-day communication and our communication styles and figuring out what works best between us as we grow, those are just bugs, and those can always be optimized out.
Yeah. I think in a professional and a personal setting, how much you like someone moment to moment matters less when you respect them in the long term.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The last question I would have on the business front before I want to dive into your take on some things and some questions we've got is how scaling has surprised you most. 12 months ago, we were laughing at the idea of running 50K months. And now, far and beyond that, what surprised you?
How quickly it came once it did. Like, yeah, it just went from zero. It felt like it went from 0 to 100, but in that period that it actually happened. And again, if we zoom out and actually look at it, it's like, I was talking to whoever, he's like, well, when did you actually like start this business? I'm like, well, if you really get technical, I started it when I was 12 years old, when I got my first itch at entrepreneurship, selling, knockoff China hats in high school. It's like, that was all leading me up to Above Men, and that was all leading me up to Attract You, and then da-da-da. So yes, it felt quick in that moment. That's like once it started to happen, it came quick, but in reality, it didn't. There is no overnight success. And the other piece is having a team is way more fun than I originally thought. And I actually just like love having a crew on the same mission that we can all kind of bond over that experience of building this thing together, lean on one another. And I say that surprising because I was the lone wolf guy. And even when I was in teams and not the business owner, but I was like part of a team, I would be very much like the lone wolf operating in the team. And I'd be like, I have all these skills. I don't need any of you. I'm just going to go do my thing and I'll just come back to you with the result. And so I never really felt like a team was that important. But conceptually, I'm like, you need a team, but I never actually like understood that from like in my core. And then once I was in the position to bring a team on with a mission that I was fully bought in on and release the kind of humility of like, I need to do it all, or even it's like, I can do it all. That doesn't mean I should do it all. And I embraced that. I was like, oh, this is like so fun having a team and getting on the team calls and doing the team building things. And not only that, it makes it so much easier and more enjoyable and comforting in a way, knowing that you have this like foundation that it's not all on you. And as the leaders of the company, like there's definitely more relying on you that I can handle and I want to handle, but you don't have to be always on. And when you have a team, you're like, oh, like if I have a down day, the team's gonna, uphold me. And even like me and you, like, if I have a down day or you have a down day, it's like something's still getting done on the business. So it's having a team has been so enjoyable. And I think a belief that I had, or not a belief, but the evidence that I had was you had to build a team with people that you might not like for whatever reason. Like when I was working at a tech startup and when I was working at, other companies, there was always 1 to 4 people that like I just didn't jive with. And that was like, okay, that's just like the nature of things. But so far it's just been proving that it's like, if you set the right standards and you set the right like norms in the company, as of now at this size, like there's no one on the team that I have any kind of like inkling of dislike to. Like I love the team and I love who we have on the team, and moving even the city, like everyone is like, it's so amazing that these are the people that I get to work with. And that's such refreshing to know that's like, you don't have to just like make these kind of sacrifices if you don't allow it. Like it's kind of up to you if you're going to accept these people into the business. Those are the first ones that come to my mind right away. The other part of scaling is there is a sense of you got to kind of do what's required, not what you think you should do. And there's a bit of like, hey, dude, like if you're actually going to scale, like fuck your feelings in a way. And it's like, bro, you just need to get this done. Like in order to scale and allow the thing to keep moving, it's like you can't be the bottleneck at times. And that is coming back to just like serving something bigger than yourself. And it's like, it's not about you at this point. It's like, if you want this thing to succeed, like you just have to get that thing done. And I felt that more than ever. Like when I was solo, it's like, yo, if I didn't feel like doing it that day, it's like, if it didn't get done, no one's being harmed. But it's like, if I don't get it done now, like the customers aren't going to be happy or the members aren't going to be happy, or they're going to look poorly on us. And that's on me. And that's then impacting everyone on the team. So that was one thing, that deeper sense of ownership that I always had, a sense like internal drive. But that really came up now, having a team, having members, and knowing that's like my impact, my actions are now rippling into a deeper set of people that they otherwise once were. So What about you?
I think what surprised me most in this quarter specifically is that there's no baked in feeling of completion. And we keep coming back together to this first chapter of The Way of Superior Man that shares explicitly never wait for the completion of anything in life. The trick is to make love with the present moment, day to day. But I always thought that at this scale, I would feel like we've solved, our problems and we figured it out. And we're like, wow, now we're just cruising on our way to the moon. The ship has launched. But in every revenue bracket, there's a new set of concerns. Yeah. Every day, there's a new set of priorities that you think need to get done that day to feel good about your contribution to the mission, which I think is just a theme in life in itself. It's that, your woman isn't going to get easier. Your kids aren't going to get easier to manage. There's no revenue target that's going to give you the excuse to take a Saturday off or go on that trip. It's just doing it day to day. So finding pockets of fulfillment, finding pockets of joy, and just like, as cliche as it sounds, the journey is the destination, and just experiencing that. Yeah.
I love that. And the other piece that came up for me is that concept of like new levels brings new devils. Not that this is, what we're facing are like devils per se, but there's always going to be a new set of challenges that approach that you don't foresee, or you haven't just put time into facing yet. And now that once you're at that level. And then the other piece, actually, this is definitely something that surprised me, back to like the money thing, and be like, oh, we just made, 6 figures in 1 month. We should be making all this money. It's like, that's just not the case. And so I think just resetting expectations of, again, in order to build a real business that has like real tangible infrastructure in place takes a lot of money and or manpower to put in place. And you really need to like delay when you as the founder and the equity partner is going to get paid what you want out of building a business and growing, et cetera. So that definitely has been the most shocking thing actually, is just, it costs a lot more money than I originally anticipated to make a business like this run and how we're choosing to run it. Like I said, we totally could be in the position of taking all the sales calls, not having the team and just doing everything ourselves and just growing at a much slower rate, but just forking a ton of cash into our own bank accounts. And because that's not the path we're choosing, that means just pushing out the ability to get paid personally for that. I have a few questions on the business side. One is, at what point, once we started the new business model and moved into coaching, made you think like, oh, this actually could be something real? Like obviously when you first came in, you were bought in on the vision, but in terms of like the business and actually it like being something real, like when did you kind of feel that and you're like, oh shit, this could be it?
I wasn't a customer first on the community side of things, but I was on the coaching. So that conviction for me came from my experience having gone through a transformation with a one-to-one mentor. When we launched community, I just felt at first like it was a little bit less tangible, and I kept like applying myself to the situation of like, would I have made this decision if I saw an ad? Would I be a customer? But when we first launched, you had the great idea of running a 30-day paid trial. So it's like $400. You get to experience the community for 30 days. And then without a sales call, it's like, do you decide to renew for the rest of the year or do you not? So our first feedback loop wouldn't be 12 months out. It would be 30 days out from when we launched. And in our first 60 days, our renewal rate, again, without a sales call, was like 75%.
Yeah.
And when I think when I saw the first clipped recordings of the
celebration call.
Yeah. What do we call it? A graduation or
no? I think it was
an invitation.
Invitation call. Yeah.
When I first saw the recordings, they were like, Jet, he scaled his business from 20K a month to 50K a month, and Zoltan got married, and there were all these shares that coming from a very practical product evaluation, history or background personally, I wouldn't have necessarily at first glance attributed those things to community, but it's not about what I think, it's about what the market tells back to us. And it was very clear that these people were having transformational 30-day periods to the point where they were like willing to nominate people to also apply for the community after those 30 days. So I think it was through our first renewals that I almost took myself out of the equation. It was like, bro, get the fuck out of the way. Listen to the market.
Yeah.
There's a ton of potential here.
And on the back of that, with what we're doing right now, with how we're building community specifically, because there's, again, a number of different communities, what do you see as our unique selling proposition, if you will, or why are we kind of like the community for what we're trying to solve for? What makes us unique? What do you think makes us stand out amongst other alternatives, whether it's literally like networking events or another community trying to do what we're doing in a certain light? Like in your eyes, what do you think makes Actualize unique?
The first value proposition would be in-person first. There are a lot of courses. I know we've been preaching fuck courses quite a bit recently. There's a lot of courses. There's a lot of like online forums that claim to facilitate XYZ. And we get people together in person in the first 30 days. And it's almost inexplainable, the energy that brings. And I've been on sales calls myself where a guy's like, well, how do I know what the community is like before I try it out myself? And I'm like, well, first off, listen to these 35 testimonials that share about it. But then it's like, bro, just look, we literally have a guarantee in place. If you come experience the energy, you apply yourself, and it's not what you're looking for, we will just refund your membership minus the hard costs. And we've seen time and time again that they come out and then they talk about it in the community. They share it in the Wins and Transformations channel because it is in person first. So that's a big one. And the second is that it's all encompassing. I personally, and maybe this is part of the reason why I'm in this role, but I personally believe that the true purpose for a man in today's day and age is to chase the best version of himself in all facets of life, moment to moment. And if you're chatting to founders exclusively about business, or you join a dating workshop with a dating coach, like these things are fragmented. So if you want to become in all ways of life the best version of yourself, you're going to need a lot of different products and a lot of different communities to chat about a lot of different things that then make you complete. And what I've been astonished by at Actualize is that everyone in the community is multidimensional and they're looking to develop themselves in so many different ways. So the ethos isn't grow your business from 5K to 50K. That happens, but that's not the ethos. The ethos is become the best version of yourself. And because our vetting process is, I would say, so regimented and unique, you can be confident that the people in the community are also viewing their life in that multidimensional way. And that, I think, is what facilitates growth at the rate that we've seen.
Yeah. Love that. I love that. I would probably just ditto both those points. And then I think the last piece that I would add on to that is the mission that we're on, and that when you come into the community, we are so adamant about, like, by you joining the community, by you participating in the community, you are actually part of this mission now. And it isn't just you're going to get this membership and you're going to get this transactional value. It's like you are stepping into this movement with us. And I think a lot of guys that are joining us and resonate with us and end up investing the money when they get accepted is that they inherently want to also be a part of something bigger than themselves. And I think it's easy for a community to feel kind of isolated over here. And it's like, hey, like, I'm going to go to this community event for Actualize, and then I'm going to go back into my life. And what we're really trying to do is say, like, no, like, this is a way of living, and this is a movement that you are going to bring with you day to day to show up as a better version of yourself, to raise the standard and reset the standard on what it means to be a strong masculine man in every asset of your life, be it growing your business, showing up powerfully in your relationship, leading yourself, being in great shape. And I think a lot of guys resonate with that and like the idea of being able to grab hold of this tangible mission that Actualize is put in front of them, kind of like how you grabbed that from me. And you're just like, I can just kind of delegate my thinking on what this mission is and kind of just buy into what Cam's already thought of. I think a lot of these guys, they want to have clear direction and purpose in their life. And in your early 20s, like, if you're unsure on what you want to do as a vehicle for money and as a life and career, you can at least buy into the concept of becoming your best self and helping the men around you step into a better version of themselves. And I see a lot of a lot of these communities is it's very, again, boy psychology focused, where it's like, I'm going to join this community to get this thing from the community for myself, period. Where it's like, that's part of the conversation with us, but then it continues with so that you can move the mission forward and move the standard back to where it could or was, just in a new way. So I think that is always why I'm just going to be so bullish on just what we're doing. Is we're not in competition with anyone, because we just genuinely want the world to be a better place, and we're doing that through raising the standard. So I think those three combined, it's just like Actualize is just destined to be the number one community for young men, because young men need this, because the state of men isn't where it is. And that's what we're driving for. We're not driving for specific business outcome. We're not trying to drive to be like the business that, or the community that has the most entrepreneurs in it, or the most, X amount, whatever the other communities are claiming, which is fine. And that's their own unique kind of prop. But it's like, we're just going after something just so much bigger than what we're all here on an individual level for.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to battle test that, you go to a place like Othership and you sit beside like a woman in the sauna, let's say, She's like, oh, you're here with like a few other guys. Like, is this a business mastermind or what do you guys have in common? You say, oh, we're part of a community called Actualize that's based here in Toronto. Oh, okay. What's Actualize? Well, it's essentially a space online and in person where men gather to find brotherhood and become the best version of themselves so they can show up for themselves for others.
Yeah.
And I've almost got more positive feedback from the women that I've explained it to than the men because they see it is just like a mass movement. It's something that the world could use more of.
Yeah. Bingo.
Any other thoughts on the business front for you?
No, I feel like we actually answered it indirectly. The other question I had was like, what do we actually, where are we actually strong right now as a business? And I feel like that is also like our unique selling proposition right now is those elements. Okay. Would you agree? Would you add anything else on that? Like what's our strengths as like our team and as the business? Three things: the mission that we are riding, the team that we have to represent that mission, and then the brand that we built. I think Actualize to a certain extent is just sick. And with the help of Yarrow, it's become super aesthetic. And it's like, that's the one limiter I see for something like man talks or like men's circles or like very kind of cliche, like men's work, quote unquote, is that it's not that cool. Yeah.
And as much as, I want to educate people to look deeper and be like, it's not about how cool it is. Yes. It's about what it represents. Like
totally.
It will just, the impact that it has and the number of people that buy into the philosophy is the most important thing. So if you package something really great in a really great wrapper and more people open it, then the world's better off because of it.
Totally agree.
Yeah. On that note, we once in a while get comments from men, I would say, that aren't compatible with our community, like this is gay, nightmare blunt rotation. Yeah. And first off, I love those comments because I think it means that we're garnering publicity.
We're polarizing.
We're polarizing, exactly. But what do you make of feedback like that? And what would you say that says about the state of men?
Yeah. When it first started to come in, there was like a slight period of acceptance of those comments and be like, oh, I do need to consider this. And like, oh, we're kind of being a little bit, we got a little man here. Get him up here.
We'll get you on camera.
You want to introduce him?
This is Solomon. He's our newest Actualize member, I think, as of last Saturday.
He hasn't paid yet, though.
Yeah, we've got an accounts receivable on Solomon, but he likes to sit on shoulder, so we give him what he wants.
A little shoulder cat.
He's gonna settle.
So yeah, for the comments, I would say they largely haven't had any real impact on how I've been thinking about things. I think recently I've been thinking about is there a world in which we portray ourselves via ads that would have less of this, and does that matter? Or, is the way we're going about it is completely fine and this is just how it's always going to be? What I think the bigger part to hone in on is these comments just give very clear evidence that's like, this is needed, what we're doing. Like the fact that there are so many men that are so closed off to being supported by other men that they go to the extent that saying like, oh, by being held accountable by other men, by going to a chalet in Whistler with 11 guys and going skiing together is gay by some standard of these people. It's like, that's ludicrous. Like what have they been programmed by? What have they been told? What have they not learned? What beliefs do they have about the world, about themselves? That these transformational containers that we're putting in place for the guys that are open-minded to it and they're seeing Like, where's the disconnect? And it's so systematic right now that's like these guys that are making these comments, there's just something so fundamentally off about their worldview. And I think that goes back to like the state of men. And so it just proves that what we are doing is so needed. And this is why, like, again, I have this internal battle, truthfully, that I'm like, oh, I see a lot of these other communities that are building for the very established man and established entrepreneur that is making a lot of money, and they're doing, multi 6, 7, 8, 9 figures, and they're like very established, and the luxury and the high end that comes with it, and the ease of dealing with that member. But then I'm like, what about all of these guys in our comment section? Who's going to serve them? And this is why I'm so bullish and have such a sense of duty to continue to lean into serving a wider range of individuals, because it's like no one is helping these guys. And a lot of them, they are helpless in the sense of they won't accept help, and they're going to stay, that's fine. But there's also a huge cohort of these guys that are on the sidelines that haven't yet said this is gay. But if no one comes to them and is like, bro, like, I got you and I see you and I want to support you, they will divert out of that potential way of being. Because there was a period where all of those guys in our comment section wasn't like that. And it could have been when they were 5 years old. It could have been like, 30 days prior to them, and something just snapped in them, and then it was like another guy fucked them over, or, their buddies made one too many like gay jokes that they're just like, yo, that's gay, right? And now that's just like, oh, like now I can't do that thing because my belief is this is gay because I've been told by the people around me. So there's some point of inflection that these men have now believed that this way of being isn't conductive to a great life. And that is just so unfortunate. And this is, I genuinely now just look at these guys. I'm like, dude, I feel bad, bro. I feel bad for you. I feel bad for the people around you, because you have so much potential, like all of us do. Yet you've been told a lie over and over and over again through probably a few generations, because of the faulty programming that has gone on in the modern day mismatch. And like, that's just humans in general. It's not for any particular one person to blame. Although I think there is some like dark energy that's gone on that has caused certain amount of men to become more like docile and submissive. Hence why, good times create weak men. And that's where we're at. But a lot of it is like, bro, like I just feel bad. And I want to continue to find a way to put great systems and infrastructure and containers together to get these guys at an earlier stage of their life, so that the comment section starts to change.
Yeah.
And it is a funny way to like look at it, but that is just a reflection of like the current state of men. And so all the guys that are seeing those comments that don't feel that way, it's like, I'm so happy that we can provide that container. And my hope is that we continue to have more and more of those guys as we widen our net, and we can provide different containers that serve guys at an earlier stage and give them more education versus maybe like what the tribe member needs when he's very established. That starts to shift. But all that means to me is that what we're doing is on the right pace, and that is truthfully the state of men. Like, it is a reflection of what the average man thinks. Because the above average guy, he doesn't make the comment, and he applies, or he at least applauds us. Maybe he's not in a position to join. He's in another community, all good, but at least is applauding. But that's the commenters. That's the average state of men's mindset today in North America. And I feel bad for it, and I feel fired up to solve for it.
Not applying is one thing, as you said, but going out of your way to comment something explicit to make judgments about the people that are participating, in my eyes, is crazy.
Yeah.
And being on the membership team, I see all the applications that come through, and I think we're at about 2,100, 2,200 a month right now. And the law of big numbers, there will be outliers. So once in a while, I see a call booked with a name that is not a name, and it's some sort of play on words, and sometimes, I would say oftentimes, very explicit and discriminatory. And then I just imagine that guy finding a genuine, loving woman and engaging in a relationship with her. They sit on the couch together. She sees a notification pop up on his phone or his laptop, like call canceled, because obviously we're not going to a call like that. And then the name, and then she looks and is like, honey, what what is this?
Right.
And he's like, oh, I was just like making a joke. I was, it's just, it's funny because like, I'm not going to join. And so I just like comment this, and she's like, I just imagine her perception of him as a man. And I think, is that worth it to you to go out of your way to paint yourself as this person?
I know, man.
Because I would say in a lot of arguments or disagreements, the problem is on the person that feels the most like emotion.
Agitated,
the most agitated towards something. So it's like when that comes through, we're like, nice, more reason to pursue the mission.
Totally.
But like, what is it in that person that inspired that much agitation to go out of their way to try and put a stop to it? So, yeah. It's the state of men.
Yeah.
And
That's a great question.
I just watched the Manosphere on Netflix, which we're going to host a viewing party for Actualize, to make sure everyone knows that that's, not what we're trying to preach. And one of the questions I got on Instagram is, now that you're in the limelight, how do you maintain authenticity? Because in watching the documentary, I've seen the other way where you're like, wait, the way for me to make the most money is to be polarizing on Instagram and to put out reels that paint me as not necessarily someone that's right, but someone that's interesting. I watched a podcast with Bonnie Blue and Andrew Tate, and it was just like headline after headline after clickbait. And I'm like, you guys aren't even talking. You're literally talking for other people.
Right.
So I'm wondering what you've experienced and how you maintain authenticity now that you've got some notice.
Yeah. I really think, and this is why I respect and have as one of my role models on my identity section in my Flourishing Self book, Marcus Aurelius. And one of his quotes more or less goes along the lines of like, don't argue what a good man is, be one, something like that. And I think that really is the most important piece, is just like coming back to like what you believe as is a great man, and on a fundamental principle first value driven level. Because Marcus Aurelius, most powerful man in the world at one point, yet he stayed grounded by looking at his principles and the truths on that govern his life, regardless of the external world and what the external world was giving him. The praise, the ability to just inflate his ego, the conquering of cities, whatever. And he's like, none of that matters, to the point that he had someone follow him around and said, bro, you're just a man, And that is the most important piece, I think, in this, is just coming back to like, what is true to you and not losing sight of that. And this was a great lesson for me, and I'm so glad I experienced it when I went viral on Instagram. So I went viral on Instagram for some really generic nutrition content that had me go from 3,000 followers to almost 300,000 followers in a matter of like weeks, which is crazy. Actually, you were with me.
Yeah. We were
when that happened. We were hiking.
Happen.
We literally went for a hike, came back down, and I was up like 10,000 followers in the early stage of that. So that then had an opportunity that opened the door for me to lean into this identity that the world wanted me to, in this pocket of 300,000 followers. They're like, Cam's this nutrition guy. I want to learn more about generic nutrition content from Cam. And I could have like strayed away from what my mission was, what my values were, what was most important to me, and just lost myself in what the audience wanted to see versus what I felt true to me and my mission. And that was such a good experience to like figure out, well, how do I navigate so much external pressure in a positive way, right? Like anyone that like ended up going the other way that I didn't and leaning into that audience, they're like, yeah, that makes total sense. Why wouldn't you just like try to monetize all of these people that just came into your world and like start serving women, start serving older people, start serving, But in that moment, I recognized like, if I want to stay true to myself and more importantly, the mission I'm on, doesn't matter what's going on in the external world. I need to stay true to my values, my principles, and most importantly, give myself time and space to what feels right. And if you continue to give yourself that space and allow like the external noise to settle and even the internal chatter to settle, your soul comes alive, your daimon comes alive and whispers in your ear what's true, what is going to serve the world and what your authentic self is here to do. And those practices like meditation, like journaling, like removing myself and doing my misogi up in, BC, like those parts of my life have been monumental in allowing myself to stay true to my authentic self. And that even goes back to like now being noticed multiple times a week in Toronto and Vancouver
While
in these
on
cities.
dates.
Sorry?
While on dates.
Yeah, I will say that is such a bonus, bro. So funny.
It's not the reason we run ads, but it's a cheer ad.
Definitely a side benefit when you're on a date and you get recognized. That said, when I'm getting noticed, I consistently ground myself by saying like, you're just another guy. And I feel like I'm just another guy, right? And I constantly remind myself because it's like there's nothing in that compliment that should change how you're behaving. Besides, it's like, this is sick. Good to meet you, bro. I'm glad we got connected. And it's great. Like even the last guy that I ran into yesterday, he's like, oh, it's so cool just to see you in person. And also it's just like, you're just another guy. Like we're in Burger Drop getting smash burgers and he recognizes, he's like, yeah, bro, my 10% meal, It's like, I eat this stuff too. So that's it. I'm kind of running in circles now, but it is just being so, and I actually wish I brought my Flourishing Self book, but that has been monumental. Like coming back to like, what is true to me? Where am I going? How do I operate? What decisions what principles do I use to make decisions day to day, and not letting the external world influence how I'm making decisions, unless that is changing my principles, then okay, but then that doesn't change like the set of information that I'm constantly using to be authentic or not.
Right. Which I think is an easier decision to make time and time again when you're operating in your man psychology.
Yes.
Because the thing that could benefit you in the short term isn't necessarily what's going to contribute most to the world. Like we had an application for the Bali retreat for someone to come out who manages OnlyFans models. Yeah. And that in your eyes, through your principles, was over the line. Yeah. It's like, do what you wish, but that doesn't abide by Actualize principles, so you're not welcome.
Yeah.
How would you recommend somebody throughout the course of their early years steps into man psychology?
I think the first piece is finding a lot of solitude early on. Like the one piece of advice that I put out on YouTube was leave your hometown. I think, again, in King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, they talk about the concept of initiation. And in tribes, not that this is what's needed now, but in tribes, what they would do is at a certain point in the boy's life, around like 12 and 13, they would take him out to some sort of vision quest, some sort of initiation that would force the man or force the boy to do something so hard that it forced the man to come online. And I think we've lost initiation and we haven't refound it in a like systematic way, because obviously we're not going to do what tribes did. Like they would literally just like take the boy and beat him and leave him for like the ants and the animals to just crawl over him and he had to fend for himself. Like we're not going to do that now. We don't need to. But I think a modern day initiation has indirectly come up for certain guys. Like I think certain guys stumble across initiation by like getting kicked out of their parents' house because they were a drug dealer and they were, unwilling to give up a certain drug or partying, and they got kicked out of their home and then they had to go to rock bottom. And that in a way was a modern day initiation. Like they went through that and they're like, hey, like if you're going to lead you out of this hole, the man has to come online because the boy's not going to be able to do it. So I think first and foremost, informally and in a very chaotic manner, like I think a lot of guys get to that point out of necessity in a way. And then it's like sink or swim. It's like you're either going to figure this shit out and the man's going to come online, or you're not, and you're going to consistently kind of be like, a boat in the ocean without a rudder, kind of just getting taken by the wind because you can't kind of like grab hold of yourself and lead yourself back to leadership. The second piece is a little bit more systematic in finding what will push, like almost like consciously pushing yourself to that point of initiation in the modern world. And that's why I say leave your hometown. It's like metaphorically cutting the umbilical cord of your mom, which is really important. It is operating in large part, like day to day, as if your father was dead, which David Dieta talks about, which was served me largely. And you're out of your hometown. Your parents are there. They're living there. You're far day to day from them. Sure, you might talk to them week to week, whatever, but you have to show up for yourself first and foremost out of your hometown. And that's why I say, A, leave your hometown, and then B, live on your own for anywhere between 6 to 12 months at a minimum as a man. Learn how to cook for yourself. Learn how to do your laundry. Learn how to get groceries. Learn all of the foundations, because in a way that is forcing the man to come online. You're, again, sink or swim. You're either going to have a fucking messy ass place, you're going to eat junk food, you're going to get overweight, or you're like, hey, if I truly want the best version for myself, and if I truly want to make money, if I want to ascend this world, if I want to serve, like, the man has to come online and do what's required in order to do that versus what the boy wants out of the world, right? So I think that's such an easy thing that all guys can do, and just fucking take the leap. Like, bro, if you're in your 20s and you're only making $4,000 a month, I would genuinely advise you to spend 50% of your income on rent just to go and live on your own and feel that like brokenness. Like, that is okay to not have any money saved. And a few guys in the community actually came to me. He's like, bro, like, I can't do this or this because I wouldn't be able to save any money. Like, saving $1,000 a month isn't going to fucking do anything for you, bro. And you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, what's $12,000 if you saved $1,000 for a full year? What's that really going to do for you versus investing in yourself and your development as a man? So that's why I'm so bullish on just investing all your money into yourself for the first like 3 to 5 years until you're like have real income skills. But that'd be the first thing I would say. There's definitely different ways, but just put yourself in really uncomfortable situations, make pre-commitments, whether it's going into an Ironman, whether it's, you know, moving out of your hometown, whether it's trying to get in rooms. Scott Galloway said this, like, get in rooms that you shouldn't be in, you know, try to talk to people that you shouldn't have access to, like, do things way above your pay grade and fail and be okay with failing, because in those failures, that is going to bring online the man over and over and over again until he's at the front of the ship or at the helm, like steering it. And now the boy can come out to play, right? But he's not the one in charge anymore, because the man had to come online in order for you to like make it in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would echo all that. And then tactically, from my own personal experience, I would also throw in solo travel as a great tool that a man can pull on.
Huge.
To have to be resourceful and rely on himself.
You're constantly problem solving.
And then entrepreneurship, I think, found us both early on. Yeah. And that the forcing of, wait, this is just on me, and whether I'm successful or not successful is literally within my realm of control. I have agency here. Yep. So those are two big focuses.
Those are great ads.
So then the question becomes, how do you know if you're 27, 28, operating day to day, if you're in your man psychology or not? What would you say the litmus test is?
Are you looking for the world to give you something, or are you looking to give the world something? I think that's the easiest piece. Like, what is your perspective on the world? Point blank. There's a bunch of other characteristics, but am I trying to take from the world, or am I trying to give from the world? Am I trying to see how the world can serve me, or am I trying to see how the world can serve, or am I trying to see how I can serve the world? Over and over and over again, whatever perspective, it's like, what's your heart posture? And it's like, what perspective of the world am I looking through? So, yeah.
And some physical representations of that would probably be whether a man is in shape or not, because he's looking to take.
Or why, again, back to perspective, why are you looking to get in shape? Because again, if I'm trying to take from the world, I'm going to do this for a game of status so I can take from the world of like the woman. Because it's like, oh, if I get in shape, then I get to earn my right to like be attractive to this girl, versus I'm going to get in shape because I know I'm going to be able to show up in a more supportive, consistent manner because my energy levels are going to be better, in which I can then operate at a higher capacity and serve more individuals. But that is a good example.
Kind of a side tangent, but I also see it largely in relationships, because that's a lot of what I talk about, where a man is chasing a woman who's riddled with plastic surgery. And I've also seen it with friends' parents, where the dad is entrepreneurial and the mom is quote unquote like a trophy wife that doesn't speak much English, doesn't ever challenge him, and is just like an aesthetic, more or less, with all due respect. And again, that's, I think, the boy psychology asking like, what can this quote unquote accessory provide to my life with the least amount of output from me possible, versus finding maybe a woman that's a little bit more feminine, that's going to need to be like pierced in certain contexts and addressed. Then sure, it costs you more like intentionality, more presence, more effort. But maybe you decide that that woman that needs you most, I think Naval Ravikant shared, a lot of life is spent looking for the person and the thing that needs you most. So maybe you find that person, then you decide, well, if I don't address this woman completely and provide her the life that she's looking for and adhere to her emotions and cater to her, then who will? Maybe this person needs me most, and maybe that's the fulfillment you choose to seek as a man, instead of asking like, how could this accessory play into like my empire as a man?
So good. That brings up actually a good point that I just heard from Jordan Brown, who he just made a reel on this. He was like, when I was growing up, I didn't want kids, and he couldn't put his finger on why. But now he's like, I want kids, and now wanting kids, I understand why I didn't want kids, because the kids were going to be a burden on my ability to live. And as a boy, why would you want kids? Like if I'm operating from boy psychology, I wouldn't want kids because all it's going to do is restrict my ability to take from the world. But as soon as I'm operating from man psychology, it's like, how can I continue to provide? And then naturally, it's like, I'm going to provide the world with kids. I'm going to be able to provide my kids. I'm going to provide my wife with what she wants out of her life, which is kids. But until you make that switch, it's very evident that if you don't want kids in this world, and this is why like I'm a big fucking skeptic of anyone that says they don't want kids. I'm like, there's something going on with you, because you're probably operating from boy psychology because you don't care enough to like serve the world, and you're looking, how can I continue to take from it? And that even goes for women on the women's side in a different way, that when they don't want kids, they're typically in a very different place than when they come into contact with a masculine man that grounds them and makes them feel safe. And they're like, of course I want kids. I want fucking kids in abundance. But I never felt safe enough to like feel the need to want kids, because all I had to worry about was myself. I need to feel safe and secure about myself first and foremost before I could care about giving life to someone else.
Totally. Well, why should a woman trust a boy to raise her kids when she knows intuitively that that boy is going to resent the kids in a lot of ways for taking some things that she's supposed to provide him away? Oh, like objectively, am I going to be more or less attractive to a boy throughout the process of having kids and after I have kids? Probably less. But how are you going to show up differently to a man when he sees you as the provider of life in his life? And like women, I heard this on a Scott Galloway podcast as well, but women in a lot of ways can decide to just go out and have kids. Like they could just find a man willing and able. Sure. But in today's day and age, I think there's a lot of men that would want to have kids that can't just flip the switch and make that decision. They need to show up in a certain way to attract that. So a man is going to love his woman so much more when she's able to provide that like ticket or that vehicle for fulfillment and contribution to another level, because he can't feel that or experience that without her.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. The one of the last notes I've got here, a question from the crowd is what kind of a role spirituality plays in your life and how that influences your take on business.
Do you want to answer that first?
Sure. I don't personally subscribe to religion because I think it's spirituality with a specific like entity or a specific train of thought that can oftentimes be disproven by other religions. And back to our point about staying open-minded as a leader, I think it's hard to place my trust into one train of thought when there's other people that also say their train of thought is the correct one. But spirituality to me means a concern about life, about the parts of life that can't be proven or measured or quantified, like karma, like things happening for a reason, like fate. And what I've now learned in pursuing spirituality myself is that a lot of the greatest minds in the world believe in like quote unquote God and are spiritual. Guys like Andrew Huberman, who are some of the most logical in the world
Yeah.
and have some of the most like scientific
So good. Yeah.
research and reason to believe or not to believe. So I think for me, it's granted me the ability to be more present because I have maybe I've almost like released the ego a little bit. And I'm like, yes, I'm in control of my life, and the day decisions that I make contribute to my future. But there is an element that's unquantifiable, that's out of my control. And if I believe that, it gives me a little bit more play, I would say. And it, like, for example, believing in karma, I don't think can be proven or disproven. But if you're optimizing for a great life, I think it's a very productive belief because it means you can just be good and do good and not look for the transactional return. It's just trust in the process.
I definitely agree that I don't prescribe to any one specific religion. I have told myself when the time and space is right, I would love to devote a large period of time to studying a couple religions that resonate with me and just giving them my listening and presence to see, like, does something like this resonate with me at a deep enough level that I would feel willing to commit my life to a specific religion. Because I've seen now two predominantly is Judaism and Christianity on very close proximities to, like, close friends of mine, business acquaintances. And I've seen how amazing their lives are. And so clearly, like, the way of living, whether it is the end all be all or everything's right or, about it or not, like, just following that template seems to produce consistent results for humans that, like, live into that, which is great. And so I think there's a lot of power in following a specific religion, and what a religion in my eyes really is that it's just a blueprint on how to live. And they just operate at the deepest level, which is your, like, principles and set of rules, etc. However, I don't think by not being religious, you can't be spiritual. Obviously, like we've chatted about, like a lot of people are. And so I totally believe in a higher power, in that there is a God that has blessed us with this world, whether it's like the entire universe or Earth or whatever that is. And how that's affected my ability to show up and how it's influenced me is leaning into something bigger than myself to give me direction in life, and not feeling like I need to make all of the decisions on my own and have to come up with it through my brain, but rather it comes through my heart and soul. That the idea that Robert Greene talked about in Mastery of, like, primal inclinations, that we're just kind of like programmed with these certain kind of desires that pop up and certain perspectives and ideas that are kind of unique to us, that, like, you wouldn't have what I have and vice versa. And they're just kind of like showing up inside of us, and then it shows up in our mind over and over and over again. But where is that coming from? That's not coming from our, like, brain firing neural pathways. It's like something bigger, our consciousness, that's like it's flowing through our heart, and then we're picking it up through our mind. And for that reason, having, which I would say we've both leaned into, especially this last year, is faith, and being okay with the gap between what we know and we don't know, and having faith that everything will work out the way it's supposed to, and that if something's not going well right now, having faith that will work out, having faith that the next step will present itself, having faith that, we will figure out, or we will get the right information in order to pursue what the mission is asking of us. And, like, that's been a huge component, because I forget what I initially heard this, but the differences between, like, someone that doesn't have a faith at all, that doesn't believe in a higher power that can assist them, versus someone that does, is in these moments where you don't see the next step, where you're unsure on how to proceed, on what the next, you're dealing with a hard situation. When you don't have faith in something bigger than yourself that is contributing to your ability to live, it falls 100% on you, because you're like, nothing outside of me is helping me in this situation. And as a result, it's all on me. It's all on my shoulders. It's me. And I need to figure out every single thing. And I need to be worried about every little thing, because it's all on me. And that is so taxing. Holy fuck. And what a just, I would say, dreadful and heavy way to live, that every single burden that comes in, you have to shoulder it, versus having the faith that there's something else out there beyond you that is giving you the ability to find what's next. And you're just going to have the faith that when you need it, it comes up. Simple as that. So I think spirituality has played a huge role. And I think I've found levels of spirituality through maybe some unconventional methods against religion, like shrooms and meditation and journaling. But being able to tune in with myself has been my biggest like connection to spirituality, and finding what my daimon has to offer me and listening to that over and over again, and not allow myself to get too caught up in like the noise of the day, and coming back to like what is channeling through me and listening to that and acting upon that, and knowing that the answers will come as I need them. Just like the money will come as I need it to play this game. So if you've been enjoying this conversation so far, I want to present you with the sponsor of the episode, Actualize. Actualize is a private community of young entrepreneurial men spanning all across Canada, soon to be North America, of guys anywhere between 18 all the way up to 35 years old. We help you build brotherhood and become your best self, not in one single domain, but all areas of your life. We have an online community, 6 to 10 in-person events of all of our active cities. We do trips and retreats around the world, mentor masterminds, accountability calls, and so much more. And so if you're looking to upgrade your circle, step into a better version of yourself, be it in fitness, in mindset, in habits, in relationships, in business, this is your place. And if that is you, I encourage you to click the link below and apply for our upcoming cohort next month. Back to the show.
Well, Cam, it's been a pleasure. And I appreciate this in-depth conversation. It's allowed me personally to reflect quite a bit on what's brought us here and where we're looking to go. The last question I would have is what you want to leave the audience with and the men that have chose to tune in.
Yeah, I think I just did another podcast with Jordan Pereira, and I would probably say around the same thing, which is through building this business to where it is today. There's really only a couple key things that guys need to focus on, and I think it's so easy now with so much information and AI, and you see on the internet such a wide range of contexts of things that feel important, and so you're like, oh my god, there's just so much to do. And I've really just always come back to like, what are the basics that I need to focus on? And I think regardless of where you're at, whether you're like super established, you're making a ton of money, you're earlier in your career, you're just starting, you feel like you're lost, like always have as your goal the ultimate aim of self-actualization and stepping into the best version of yourself. And if you ask yourself, how do I become the best version of myself? The right questions will appear to answer that and to show that evidence and to feel that becoming of closing the gap. So that's the ultimate aim, regardless of what your unique vehicle is, what you're doing for work, what you're potentially going to start, what you're scaling. It's like, as an individual level, your ultimate aim should always be, and this is my belief, and this is what we believe at Actualize, is self-actualization is the ultimate game that we're playing, and we want to play it through self-transcendence, doing something, serving a mission bigger than ourselves. But number one is self-actualization. And then the next piece of that is surrounding yourself with guys that are on that same mission, because not all guys understand that is the ultimate game. And a lot of us, again, like the guys in our comment section, they're not playing that game. And as a result, that is going to hinder your ability to move towards that for yourself. And so if there's really two main things that you need to focus on to move in the right direction, it is understanding what the ultimate game is, which is becoming your best self, and everything else kind of opens up as a result of pursuing that. And then B, surrounding yourself with guys that are on that same mission, and being ruthlessly okay or unapologetically fierce in removing the people that aren't on that game. And that doesn't mean cutting people off. It just means stepping away from and removing them from your life, from a sense of like just removing yourself from those people's lives. Because if you you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Point blank, period. It doesn't matter if it's your parents, doesn't matter if it's your coworkers, whoever you spend the most time with, you will be the average of those individuals, their beliefs, their habits, their behaviors, their income, everything. And so if you start there, you're going to be in a really good position. And then if I were to add one other pillar to it, it's practice the energetic fundamentals. Like live an energy first lifestyle, because that will give you the capacity to have the energy to pursue your best self. Eat well, move often, get tons of sleep, and manage your stress and emotions. Like, practice the fundamentals, because that gives you the clarity and the right thinking with the capacity to move towards your best self. Because if you don't have the energy, it's gonna be really fucking hard to get out of bed, and it's gonna be really hard to see the world in an abundant, glass half full perspective. So if you can just remember those three things, everything else will flow from that. That's all you need to figure out. And it's not about this tactic, this business, doing every single habit under the sun. It's really just about the fundamentals. And there's a couple key things that if you can just remember those, you can get into a place that you can get a lot of momentum going, and you can figure everything else from there. But you don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to have the goal of becoming your best self. You have to be around other guys that want to do it. And you got to practice the fundamentals that are going to give you the energy most consistently to have the capacity to move towards that. So
great. Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. And until next time.
Appreciate you, bro.